It looked like Bertha Russell finally had the upper hand. The opera house, the parties, the whispers of admiration from old money elite soul signs pointed to victory. But just when it seemed like the doors of high society had flung open for her, the final moments of episode 4 showed something far more dangerous, a silent rejection hidden behind polite smiles. What really happened in that ending? And what does it mean for Bertha and everyone around her? Asterisk, Season 3 of The Gilded Age has taken its drama to a whole new level, and episode 4 is no exception. From glamorous gatherings to backroom betrayals, the stakes have never felt higher, but it's the ending of this episode that leaves the biggest impression, a moment so quiet, yet so loud in meaning. In a world where every word, every glance, every seat at the opera carries weight, this episode's final scene leaves us wondering, who's truly in control, and who's merely pretending to be? Asterisk, to understand why the ending matters so much, we have to remember what this show is really about. The Gilded Age isn't just a period drama filled with pretty dresses and expensive homes. It's a story about power, who has it, who wants it, and what they're willing to do to keep it. It's about class, ambition, and the invisible lines that divide people, even when they're standing in the same room. Asterisk, this episode gave us everything fans love about the show: grand entrances, cutting remarks, and shifting loyalties, but the ending pulled all of those things together in one sharp, uncomfortable moment. It was the kind of scene that doesn't shout at you but instead whispers something unsettling. The kind of scene that stays in your mind long after the credits roll. Asterisk, so what exactly happened in those final seconds? Why did it matter that someone looked away at the wrong time or didn't return a polite nod? These may seem like small gestures, but in the world of the Gilded Age, they can change everything. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk through what led up to that ending, break down what happened, and explain what it all means, not just for this episode, but for the rest of the season. Asterisk, because make no mistake, what we saw at the end of episode 4 wasn't just a social snub, it was a warning. A signal that beneath all the wealth and elegance, a new kind of war is quietly being fought. Asterisk, before we break down the final moments, let's rewind and look at how episode 4 brought us there. This episode is full of small moves that build into something much bigger. It's not just about what people say, it's about what they choose not to say, where they sit, who they invite, and most of all, who they ignore. Asterisk, we start with Bertha Russell, as ambitious as ever. She's still fighting for her place among New York's high society, the old money crowd that sees her as flashy, new, and undeserving. But Bertha doesn't back down. This time, she sets her sights on a bigger prize, becoming the leading force behind the Metropolitan Opera. For Bertha, this isn't just about music. It's about power, presence, and winning, the kind of influence that no one can take away. She believes that if she can control culture, she can control everything else. Asterisk, meanwhile, the old money elite, especially Mrs. Astor and her allies, aren't staying quiet. They see Bertha's moves as a direct challenge to their way of life. The episode makes it clear that the battle between old and new money is heating up. The tension isn't loud, but it's always there in whispered conversations, in cold glances across dinner tables, and in who's included and who's left out. Asterisk, Marion Brooke, on the other hand, continues to walk a fine line between independence and tradition. Her romantic life is still uncertain. There's a growing connection with a man who clearly respects her mind, not just her social position. But that love story is complicated by expectations, family pressure, and Marion's own desire to live life on her own terms. In episode 4, we see her beginning to question the world around her more openly. She's no longer just the quiet niece. She's slowly finding her voice. Asterisk, and then there's George Russell, whose business empire is under subtle attack. A shady deal, a quiet threat, and suddenly he's reminded that money doesn't always mean safety. He might be one of the richest men in New York, but as we've seen before, money can't buy everything, not even peace. Asterisk, throughout the episode, small conflicts begin to stack up. Bertha pushing her way into elite circles, Marion stepping out of her comfort zone, George facing enemies in the shadows. These storylines might seem separate at first, but they all come together in the final minutes. That's where everything tightens. All the polite tension, all the smiles hiding sharp teeth, suddenly, it all breaks through. Asterisk, so when we reach the end of episode 4, we're not just watching a scene, we're watching a climax. A release of pressure that's been building all episode long. Bertha, believing she's finally secured her place, is confronted with something that no amount of money or planning can fix. Rejection from a world that still sees her as an outsider. Asterisk. But the way that rejection happens, the look, the silence, the shift in energy is what makes the ending so powerful. It's not dramatic in a loud way. It's dangerous in a quiet, deadly way. And it sets the stage for what's coming next. Asterisk. In the next section, we'll break down that ending moment by moment, what really happened, who was involved, and why. It changes everything. Asterisk. The final scene of episode 4 doesn't come with raised voices or broken glass. Instead, it's quiet, controlled, and absolutely brutal. It takes place at yet another grand event, where society's most powerful figures gather in gowns, tuxedos, and masks of polite charm. On the surface, everything appears perfect. But underneath the surface, war is being waged, a war of status, influence, and legacy. Asterisk. Bertha Russell walks into the room, dressed to impress, confidence glowing in her every step. She believes she's won. After all the effort, the donations, the planning, the social maneuvering, this is supposed to be her moment. The moment she becomes untouchable. The moment old money finally accepts her as one of their own. Asterisk. But then, something small happens. A pause, a glance, a chair not offered. It's barely noticeable unless you know what to look for, and Bertha, of all people, knows. She walks toward the box she expects to sit in, the one she believes is reserved for her. But when she gets there, the air shifts. Another woman, older, more connected, is already seated there, a subtle signal that Bertha has been pushed aside. Asterisk. No one says anything. No one needs to. The message is clear, you're still not one of us. Asterisk. Bertha hesitates, just for a second. Her expression doesn't change much. A flicker in the eyes, a tightening of the jaw. She's trained herself to never let emotions show, especially in public. But in that second, we see it. Disappointment. Maybe even rage. This isn't just about being snubbed. This is about power slipping through her fingers right when she thought she had it secured. Asterisk. She doesn't make a scene. She simply redirects herself and accepts another seat, slightly lower in the pecking order. But that one move, her taking that lesser seat, tells us everything. It's not the seat itself. It's what it represents. In this world, where position equals worth, that lower seat is more than furniture. It's a statement. You can build your opera house. You can buy your diamonds. But you can't buy your way into our circle. Asterisk. And the most dangerous part. They didn't say a word. That's how real power works in the Gilded Age. The ruling class doesn't shout. They exclude, silently, elegantly, cruelly. Asterisk. Even more striking is the way the people around Bertha respond. Some glance at her, some look away. A few smile, as if nothing's wrong, while others enjoy the moment. These aren't just guests. They are judges, watching, measuring, calculating, each of them making mental notes about who's rising, who's falling, and who no longer belongs. Asterisk. As the scene closes, we linger on Bertha's face. Not defeated, but burning. She's been knocked down before. This isn't new, but what makes it dangerous is that she doesn't give up. She adapts. She plans. And most of all, she remembers. Asterisk. That's the brilliance of this ending. It doesn't end with closure. It ends with quiet tension and unresolved power. Bertha's story isn't finished, it's shifting. And if we've learned anything from her so far, it's this. She doesn't forget. And she never forgives. Asterisk. Next, we'll explore the deeper meaning of this moment, what it says about status, power, and the invisible rules that define who wins in the world of the Gilded Age. The ending of episode 4 isn't just a plot twist, it's a message. A quiet but powerful message about who holds power and how they choose to keep it. Beneath the surface of this elegant world lies a deep system of control, not through violence, not even through laws, but through tradition, silence, and exclusion. And that's what makes the Gilded Age so compelling. It shows us a society that looks beautiful on the outside, but is filled with invisible walls and unspoken rules. Asterisk. One of the biggest themes this episode explores is social climbing and how the higher you go, the harder it gets. Bertha Russell has everything: wealth, style, a respected husband. She builds grand houses, hosts lavish events, and funds entire opera houses. She does everything right, at least from a practical view. But what she's really up against isn't just snobbery. It's a closed system built to keep people like her out. Old money doesn't just resist change, it fears it. And Bertha, with her ambition and refusal to follow their rules, represents everything they're afraid of. Asterisk. The rejection she faces isn't about taste or tradition. It's about power. The old families don't want to share it. So they use every tool they have not to destroy her, but to control her. That's what the final scene shows so clearly. It's not a fight, it's a reminder. You don't belong. We decide who belongs. And Bertha is forced to play along. For now. Another theme at play is gender and control. Bertha isn't just climbing the social ladder, she's doing it in a world built by and for men. Yet, the real battles in this episode aren't fought by men at all. They're fought by women like Mrs. Astor, who leads the old guard with nothing but poise and influence. And Bertha, who's challenging that rule with force and innovation. It's a war fought in gowns and guest lists, but make no mistake, it's a war. Bertha's struggle is also Marion Brooks' struggle, in a different way. While Bertha fights to rise in society, Marion is quietly trying to step outside of it. Her refusal to settle for a man she doesn't love, or a life she doesn't believe in, is a quieter rebellion. But just as powerful, Marion is starting to ask questions. Why must women marry for status? Why are their futures shaped by others? And in this episode, we see her take small steps toward defining her own path, even if it means standing alone. Lastly, the ending highlights the theme of old money versus new money, a core idea of the entire show. Old money is about legacy, family names, and unspoken rules. New money, like the Russells, is about action, energy, and bold moves. But this episode shows the cost of being new. Even with all their riches, the Russells are still seen as outsiders. And this isn't just about wealth, it's about identity. It's about who gets to write the rules, and who's forced to follow them. What makes this episode so brilliant is how it doesn't scream its message. It whispers it. In a glance. In a chair. In a moment of silence. That's the show's genius. It shows how power works when it's hidden in plain sight. As we move into the second half of the season. This quiet ending sets up a loud reaction. Bertha may have lost this round, but this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new strategy, and likely, a new kind of fight. Next. We'll look ahead to what this ending means for the rest of the season, and how the story may unfold from here. The ending of episode 4 wasn't loud, but it was a turning point. A silent rejection in a loud, glittering room. And what makes this moment so powerful is not just what it says about Bertha's place in society, but what it promises about where the story is going next. If you've been watching closely, you already know that the Gilded Age never lets a humiliation like this go unanswered. So what happens now? For Bertha Russell, this moment changes everything. She's not someone who forgets a slight, especially not one served so publicly. Being denied a proper seat at the opera wasn't just about one evening. It was a message that her status is still being questioned, no matter how much money or influence she gathers. And Bertha doesn't accept no easily. We can expect her to regroup and strike back, not with emotion, but with cold, calculated precision. Whether that's through taking full control of the opera, forging new alliances, or publicly embarrassing someone in return, she will find a way to turn this loss into power. She always does. This rejection may also push her into more dangerous territory, perhaps even a public feud with Mrs. Astor. If that happens, it won't be a polite disagreement. It will be a full social war, where invitations, appearances, and rumors become weapons. Bertha knows how to build empires. The question now is, can she tear down the ones built before her? Then there's George Russell. While Bertha fights for a place in the drawing room, George is still dealing with quiet threats in the boardroom. His storyline may soon intersect with Bertha's in a more personal way. If George's business interests get tangled with the same families Bertha is trying to impress, we could see them pulled into even deeper conflict, not just as a couple, but as two powerful players facing pressure on every side. Meanwhile, Marion Brooks' growing independence might also start to affect the wider story. So far, she's been a gentle presence, polite, reserved, respectful, but we're starting to see a shift. Marion's desire for a life on her own terms could clash with her aunt's rigid expectations and even push her into open rebellion. Her romantic choices, especially, could either elevate her or isolate her, and in a world like this, even love comes at a cost. She may soon have to choose between the safety of tradition and the risk of freedom. The larger power dynamic between old money and new money is clearly heating up. As we move toward the mid-season mark, the lines are being drawn. The old families are becoming more aggressive in protecting their space. The newcomers, like the Russells, are more determined than ever to take it. But what makes this fight dangerous is that it's not being fought in courts or battlefields. It's being fought at banquets, in theater boxes, and through the art of who gets mentioned in the newspaper. Asterisk, we may also see new players emerge, quieter figures who have stayed in the background but are ready to rise. Every season, the Gilded Age introduces fresh faces who challenge the order in unexpected ways. Episode 4's ending sets the stage for someone, possibly even a current underdog, to make a bold move and shift the balance. Asterisk, in short, this episode didn't just close a chapter, it opened several. The rejection of Bertha Russell wasn't an ending. It was a spark. And if we've learned anything from her journey so far, it's that she never lets sparks die quietly. Asterisk, there's a storm coming in the Gilded Age. And episode 4's ending was just the first drop of rain.